So we're on a job site here, changing out a 75 gallon. So what we're trying to do here is get the tank out without damaging that flange right there, because that's just drywall and a thin sheet of metal. So you gotta do this just right. Bingo. Now, if you're not the size of Eric, that can be a little difficult. But Eric has a special talent.
The key is not to use your back.
Yes, absolutely. This is the old one, which is basically only one generation old. I think it's like 5.5 years old or less. Basically, these customers are just tossing money down the drain with their salt softener. But that's what they want. And so we'll be back here again in 4 years to replace it. What we're doing here is basically stripping the whole thing down. We're gonna take everything, including this ball valve up there, all the supply lines, all the bracketing. We're gonna gut this thing. And then what we're gonna do is rebuild everything from scratch. The reason we do that is because we do not want any callbacks in the future over a $6 part like that. So everything we do every time is gonna be brand new. Sometimes people wanna cut corners, and that's fine, but we just won't do it. Because what it means is that we're gonna piss you off when we're back 3 times fixing something that should have been done properly the first time. Drain that last bit of water in the supply lines into a bucket so that we don't damage the drywall. The remainder will be caught in that bucket in the pan. And then we're gonna go ahead and pull all this off. So that's one inch copper we just yanked off with no effort. Hang on. So on the other side of that wall, there's supposed to be bracketing in between the studs. And in this case, I think it's either come loose or the original rough-in plumber messed it up. So we're gonna sweat this off so we don't force it. And then we'll go ahead and press it back on. And the key is having all the right tools for any variation that you find, which this little bandsaw is key. Bingo. That could have taken us 10 minutes with a solder kit, because whenever there's water in the pipe, it won't get up to temperature. It has to steam off. It takes forever. So having all the right tools at hand is key. And this is a little Milwaukee M12 bandsaw. Now we're gonna remount the pipe. Make sure you get proper flow after we put the new valves on. Use sandcloth, polish up the copper. Get it back to brand new. That way we get a nice solid seal. If you were gonna sweat this, you have to get that super shiny, because it has to be bare metal to metal to weld and solder properly. We're gonna press this so you could, in theory, kind of leave it a little dirtier, but we always wanna just be sure that we get a good seal. All right, so tell me what you got there. We got the ball valve.
1 inch press valve, 1 inch by 3/4 T.
Okay, so hang on, we got a 1 inch ball valve because this is a 75. And then we got a T going up, that'll be our expansion tank. This is gonna be our supply to the water here. We got all press fittings because they're awesome, that's why.
Save time?
It saves a lot of time. They're a lot more expensive, but the copper on them and the brass is much thicker. So this is the actual press machine. They're not cheap at all. It's not something a homeowner's gonna buy. But when you do this every single day, you gotta have one. So if you're a homeowner watching this and you want to give this a whirl yourself, it is definitely possible, especially if you've ever done any home improvements or renovations. It's not difficult, but there's a lot of little nuances that go to it. Eric, show me that bad boy little tool you have there. All right, this thing is the magic sauce. It's got high magnetic little magnets in there, and what it does is it finds the screw head. Show me what you're gonna do. So like when you're going through a stud, you can use an electric stud finder and they suck. But when you find the stud, it just grabs on and lets you know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
Anybody who does any sort of carpentry is gonna use this tool. This is one of the coolest little gadgets I've ever seen. Get one, 10 bucks, Amazon. So what we're doing is trying to find the location for our expansion tank so that it's out of the way of all the plumbing and also out of the way of the vent, and we can get the water heater in. The way they had it before, I don't think we're gonna be able to get it back in there the same way. This is the thread sealant. throw a little bit of that excess on there. In fact, I think, Eric, it's best if you put it on the sealing edge right there, because if it leaks past the seal, then that'll stop it, but it's better, yeah, there you go. That's what you're trying to block, is that seal there. So these threads right here are really sharp and almost slightly uneven. So what you want to do is you want to wrap your tape around the threads and then stretch a little bit over onto the seal, because if you look at it closely, it's not even, it's actually sharp, and when they put it through the mill, you know, there's a little spur right here. So you gotta make sure to put an extra tape right there, otherwise these are notorious for cutting the gasket and leaking. Also, do not over tighten. So because the expansion tank that was originally on there was a 2.5 gallon, which is, there we go, it's too small. That's only for 40s and 50s. I'm not sure how that passed code the first time, so this is a 4.5 gallon. And it's too big to fit in the cavity, so we gotta put it outside. So now we've got our bracket set up, we got our copper plumbing set up, ready to put the expansion tank up, screw it together, and then drop the tank in. We just have to replace this gas valve. There's our TP overflow. Just loosely getting the expansion tank straps in. So you gotta stretch it a little bit so just the touch gets around. There you go. Yeah, there you go, exactly. Just wanna fold it around. The big deal is getting that seating surface covered, which is right here. This surface is the only surface that seals in the gasket, because the nut goes over the threads and pulls the gasket into this seat, and there, that's where it works. So here's a little tip. You want to put a drop of WD-40 right in here, because what's going to happen is you need this nut to slide on this plastic insert or whatever is going on, and you just want this black gasket to come straight down onto the pipe. What you don't want to happen is the gasket and this nut to start turning together, and then this crinkle inside there and cause a leak. So all you want is the nut to pull the gasket straight down onto the fitting. So you put a little drop of WD right there, and then this will slide independently of this and the gasket and just come straight down onto it, versus twisting it and putting tension on it, which could cause a leak. Getting our measurements perfectly for the straps. Come over here. 50, 35, 20. So a 75 gallon will take 3 straps. Just code. All the little things are what the inspectors will get you on. So we gotta put these fire blocks on the wall to keep the water heater just off the wall and in the pan perfectly, so the water doesn't run down, hit the wall, and then go around the water heater pan. We just heated that up, and then we're gonna turn it vertically so that we can get it straight down into the TP zone. So what are you doing here, Eric? You're just measuring the TP?
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring the temperature leave out so it connects to the front of the actual
Got
water
it. So we gotta basically come from over here, around, over to here. So we gotta get the measurement right, and then we also have to have a 1/4 inch per foot drop because it is a drain. But now we pretty much got this whole thing gutted and everything is brand new. We're gonna change this gas valve probably at the end. That way, you know, when you buy from us, you don't have a bunch of janky crap going on. Everything's brand new. That way you get the full warranty out of your water heater, you get the full life out of it, and we're not coming back. You're not getting a leak. Everybody's happy. So we've got everything stubbed out, because once you get this bad boy in there, you're not gonna be able to do this 90-degree angle right there. So you gotta do it first. Everything's gotta be done before you slide in the tank. That way everything just straps down nice and easy. And that's how you get a massive water heater into a cavity like that. So remember how we had those blocks? See, it's gonna bump up against there and keep the water heater in the pan just perfectly. If you don't do that, if it leaks from the top, it's gonna flood the whole cavity here. So you want the water to fall in the pan, not run down the wall and come out of the box. So the issue that I see is that we pressed all this stuff first. What I recommend is you leave these loose. You cut them to fit, you just loosely put them together, dry fit them, slide your tank in, put your vent up, because right now this vent is gonna be in the way of this water here, so it's super tight. So I think we're gonna make it work, but in the future, I think it's easier to press after everything's set up, and then the last thing you do is press it together, because that gives you the opportunity to move things around if something doesn't fit. All right, so we got everything set up here. We had to use a ProPass 1 inch to 3/4 inch reducer, and the reason why is because there's a comfort valve here. The customer doesn't want to change it, so we just connected it straight to here, but The comfort valve would normally go in between here and here, but since we have 1 inch on the nipple and the 75 and the 3/4 supply, to reduce it down. Over here, we're at 1 inch. Oh yeah, that's on there. Now when you shake the tank, it's fixed to the studs. So what we're doing here is getting all the B-vent twisted into proper position, which can be tough, and you can put a little bit of WD-40 in those joints to make them move easier. And then that will drop down right on the flue hood. Here's another quick note, is this is B-vent all the way to the water heater. In theory, you can do A-vent, which is single wall. It's much easier to work with. So we could have just replaced this whole thing with the single wall vent, which is a lot easier to use. If you can't get this to work, the single wall is sometimes the way to go, because the B-vent is just so difficult. You only need to use B-vent when it's near combustible material, because there's nothing combustible outside of this vent. So technically from that termination right there, all the way down can be a single wall, which is a lot easier to work with. So we're gonna fill up the tank while we're finishing the vent, and right now you can hear it rushing in. We had the customer go upstairs and open a tub at the furthest faucet. That way we can purge the whole system through that. And then we can also pull this out. Now we'll do this one time at the time of installation. Never touch this thing after you install it, because it will be caked and it will not close and it will leak. So you want to turn the water on as soon as possible, get the vent hooked up, and that way you can get the water hot before you leave, and then you can test it. So before you start cleaning up, before you do everything, you want to get the water on, the vent hooked up, get that water hot, clean up. Last thing you do is test all the showers. We need to go through the entire house and make sure that all the aerators, that's the little piece underneath the faucet that comes off, it's got a filter screen. You need to pull those off, tap them out, clean them out, boil them out, do whatever you got to do. So you have to make sure that you pull all the aerators out in the reducing valves, because look, I don't know what that is, but you need to get this out of the faucet, otherwise it'll block up and then the customer will call you. Look at all that debris in there. After you're done with that, you need to go to each faucet in the house and make sure that the water's hot after you turn the water heater on, and that also the flow is good. So you want to test every single shower and make sure that the customer says, yes, this is how it was before. So when you light this thing up for the first hour, because the water's so cold, it's going to condense inside the chimney in the water heater, and then the beads of water are going to drip back onto the burner and sizzle. So if you hear some sizzling noise, that's normal. All right, so it's been about 2 minutes of pushing that button, clicking the igniter, which is that button right there, and now it's green status, which means we're good to go, and it's on. You should be able to hear it. And it's burning, and you're going to hear that sizzle and pop. That's the condensation happening. It's normal.
If you have any issues, phone number's right there.